Okay, so today we'll talk about Ron Arad. So Ron Arad, with the pronunciation in Hebrew, he was born on the 24th of April, 1951, is an Israeli industrial designer, artist, and architectural designer. Born in Tel Aviv in Israel to a Jewish family, he studied at the Bezalel Academy of Arts and Design in Jerusalem between 1971 and 73, and at the Architectural Association School of Architecture in London from 1974 to 1975. Of course, he studied there. If you open the Architectural Association Wikipedia page and you go to the bottom of the presentation about this school and you look at the alumni, those people who went through that school and graduated from the school, you will be amazed. In my opinion, about 80%, I hope I'm not exaggerating, about 80% of the architects who move architecture today went through that school. The school is very, very important. So Ron Arad co-founded the design and production studio One Off, and I like even its name, One Off, in 1981 with Caroline Thorman. Ron Arad Associates Architecture and Design Practice was formed in 1989, and in 2008, Ron Arad Architects was established alongside Ron Arad Associates with Caroline Thorman and Asa Bruno. His brother is the violist and educator Atar Arad, so an artistic family. This is the man, an interesting man, really. I even a little bit envious of him. I like the way he dresses. He's artsy, he's artistic, he's creative, he's crazy, and he does beautiful things, in my opinion. He even looks good, I think, and good for him. So Ron Arad, we are going to see some interesting works by him. Again and again, you cannot create if you don't try to unite work with play. Of course, you could say, wait a minute, play is dangerous. Of course it's dangerous, but it's also beautiful. Usually pleasure is dangerous, but what would life be without pleasure? And if you use the pleasure principle creatively, well, you could arrive at interesting things. I mean, look at this man, how he's dressed. Yes, he's an eccentric, but you will see his works. They are great. I love his scarf. I love even his, womanish hat. An interesting man, and I truly think we need a revolution in Romania, the revolution of freedom, of joy, of playfulness, because we are really too stiff and too rigid and too dogmatic. And it's a shame because we are, as a country, as a people, I think, at least potentially, very imaginative. So this is Ron Arad. Yes, that's how our professor should look like. That it's not about, having certain functions within the hierarchical social structure. It's really about being inspired by the work, because yes, you could have a very interesting persona and the work be meaningless. But in his case, the persona is not superior or more interesting than the work itself. And you are going to see it. So Ron Arad, I already read this. What is here? Yeah, sorry, it was twice the same text. Tocha. Let's see what Tocha is. It's a project, an architectural project. This is a sketch. I don't know if he built it. I guess he did. Anyway, I made this presentation 2 or 3 years ago, and I didn't review it. Yes, it's actually a very important building by him. So let's read again. Tocha. It's in Tel Aviv. Look at this. This man is an industrial designer, an artist, And an architectural designer, I guess he doesn't have the, the technical, right for signature or something. That's why usually when you see architectural designer, that's kind of what it means. He doesn't declare himself as an architect. Maybe he didn't finalize his studies at Architectural Association. I don't know. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But actually, this most celebrated and famous architecture school in the world, I don't think it has accreditation. Because of course, those who are unconventional, they are kind of at war with bureaucracy. So, but again, look on Wikipedia at the bottom of the page, Architectural Association, and you'll see the 3 Pritzker prizes, 2 or 3 Sterling prizes, which is the most important architecture prize in Great Britain. Countless formidable architects who went through that school. And look what he built. Is it bad? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. So, architecture actually is not so difficult to practice if you are born for it. But not only if you are born for it, but also if you have the right inspirations. As Wolf Prick said, who is Doctor Honoris Causa in Bucharest, at the School of Architecture in Bucharest, he said, we cannot teach, architecture cannot be taught. You can teach, of course, the technicalities in the Ernst Neufert manual, but that's not architecture. Let's not confuse things. That's not architecture. That's about, some technicalities which you can even learn by yourself. Architecture cannot be taught, said both him and Zaha Hadid. The only thing you can do is to inspire. And I guess this man was inspired either by the God within or, and who knows what other external and internal influences and inspirations. So he's a good designer, of course, not just of buildings, but of objects. And he also does interesting artistic things, and we are going to see some of them. But what moves me is that sophisticated countries actually encourage such people to express themselves. Talent is appreciated. Let's not imagine that this man didn't work or that he doesn't work hard. He does. He has an office. To erect such a building is not a joke. He did it in Tel Aviv. But he built in other parts of the world, and we are going to see some of his buildings. Ron Arad. I like this town. But why did he twist the building? In quest for joy and for freedom, that's why. He didn't want to make it stiff. He wanted to bring some life into it, some movement. And he did. Although you see, it's a big office building and it functions quite well. A lot of glass, of course. Well, he built it some years ago. I'm trying to excuse him because I'm kind of an adversary of too much glass. But it's not only glass, as you can see. Ron Arad, on the 24th was his birthday. He was 71 years old on the 24th of April this year. Now, compare his building to the buildings on the left and the buildings on the right. Doesn't it stand out? It does. Why? Because it's free, or freer than the others. That's why. It's cultural, it's artistic, it has a soul in a way. The others are okay, maybe they are correct buildings, this. But architecture which is just correct is not enough. No, you have to bring something original, something, to make it, just like when you give birth to a child. Now, let's say you are a couple, now you are parents. Would you like your child to look identical, to look and be like the child next door of other couples? Of course not. And nature, in fact, doesn't do this sort of aberrations. I'm not trying to say that this building is unbearably, extravagantly original. There are other buildings, playing with, variations on various floors, but still within an architectural language that belongs to our time, he created something that is his. Why nobody talks about him in the School of Architecture? Why? But he is not the only one, of course. Is this building to be pointed at, for being, malevolent in its meanings, or no, no. It's true, it provokes us. I mean, look what is on the right and look what is here. Here it is an artist at work, because architecture at its best is an art. And those who don't believe it should open any history of art, and architecture is there. Why? Why is architecture on many pages of any history of art? On the other hand, why is architecture absent from any history of science? I am not trying to say that there are no technical or so-called scientific aspects to architecture. Of course there are. But at its best, it is an art. And that's why it is present on the pages of most, if not all, histories of art that I saw in my life. And believe me, I have seen many books, because a good part of my life I spent in secondhand bookstores and libraries. I don't remember actually of seeing a history of art without architecture in it. No, architecture is, it might be, who knows, one or two, but most histories of art include architecture, and with good reason. Art is here too. It is art. To be able to make a sculpture convincing, to be able to move these floors, it has to do with aesthetics. It's not just, calculation, a brain work. No. And he is an artist. He even does artworks, and you are going to see them. Some of them quite so-called crazy. But art, if it's not a little bit crazy, is not art. We need art. Look at these columns. Why did he make them like this? Well, with probably a reason, not just aesthetical, but also structural. The idea that everything has to be with vertical columns and horizontal beams is ridiculous. I mean, the world was not traced with a T-square and a rectangle. God didn't use them. Why didn't he use them? Well, he was able to manage without them. Anyway, I love buildings which are adventurous. Look at these people. Of course, there were many calculations, many engineers, many materials, many numbers, many dimensions. All these people working to build the building that Ron Arad imagined. And it stands. It was built and it's good. Now you are going to see other buildings by him. But you saw how the man dresses, and you see how the man builds. They match each other, the man and the building, I think. Very good. When a few years ago, I invited students, I think on the first day of March, or no, the first day of spring, to come to Minku dressed as hippies. Well, I think I think if they, unfortunately, it was raining on that day and it didn't happen. But I'm not sure if it would have if it would have happened if it didn't rain. But just imagine, 2,000 students or 1,000 or 1,500 dressed colorfully, imaginatively, even crazily a little bit, like Ron Arad. My God, would have been a beautiful sight, and it would have been, I think, even an influence on the projects. But then, if you dress like this on the first day of spring or whatever, then I think you would have some tough time to continue to do a boring project, because you would like to express something of the spirit of the spring, as it is now outside spring, and of the spirit of, your choice of your attire into the project. Maybe bring in some flowers, some ornaments, some certainly colors. Look at this. This is a technical drawing, isn't it? But even as a technical drawing, I think it's beautiful. I would put this drawing on the wall as a great graphic work. And it's probably a structural plan. Or I don't know, with installations, or anyway, it's a technical drawing, but it's still, I think remarkable aesthetically. Again and again, you cannot have art without freedom, and you cannot have architecture without freedom. No. Not good architecture. You can have pseudo architecture, you can have pseudo art, but not true art. That's why on the facade of the secessionist building by Maria Olbrich in Vienna, it's written with golden letters in German. I'll translate in English. To each time or each age, it's art, and to each art and to art, it's freedom. It's important, and it's important for you to fight for that freedom, because for freedom you have to fight every day, just like for peace. He worked, of course, with, you see here the evolution of the building in March, December, September, June. Yeah, how the building came into being. You see, he also took into consideration the annual solar incidence analysis for the southeast facade, annual solar incidence analysis for the northwest facade. So, it was not just a play with forms. So again, this man, who obviously enjoys a certain level of extravagance, is also a rigorous man. Plus he works with sophisticated technology, and you couldn't build this sort of building without that technology. Impossible. Look at the structure. Yes, of course, it's fine. Are the columns vertical? No, they are not. Yes, the floors are horizontal, but the columns are not vertical, and I kind of like what I see. This is, I guess this is how he works. Maybe he tried to modify in time, the final design for a portion of the building. So he incorporated a handmade drawing on a, on a picture of the building. Actually, I think I saw something similar done. This is a sketch he did, prior to, crystallizing the solution, if I am to call it so. Of course, it is cultural because the man is also an artist. But again, we look at something that is an adventure and a creation. look here, I don't know what's written there, the with band, well, anyway, he writes here in English. So it's an interesting idea, you know, to bring manuality into a, you know, a digital drawing or a digital imagining. This one we saw. And you see, what do we see here? We see the presence of emotions, the gesture, the artistic gesture, the hand, the emotion, even in the writing. This is important. You know, I mean, you cannot be just cerebral. You cannot be just, you cannot just do brain work, because brain work is, in its essence, in its definition, dry. I actually do not understand very well why there is, I mean, I understand because we live kind of in a, you know, cerebral, you know, climate, if I am, although there is a lot of irrationality. Look at the war in Ukraine. But what I'm trying to say is the world of concepts doesn't allow for this kind of gesturalism, or these gestures, these emotional gestures, you know, where you see, but they are important. Here is the instinct of the hand, the intuitions, which are, you know, explosive at times. They are important. It's important to express the emotions. Mediacite in Liège, in France. So he built in France too. So the text description provided by the architects, Ron Arad architects, were invited to design the new mall, roof, and public spaces of the 40,000 square meters mixed-use development known as Mediacite, situated in Liège, once the world's foremost center for steel production. And since in economic decline, the building stands out as a symbol of the city's revitalization and strives to spearhead the city's regeneration. Here it is. It's not, I prefer the previous building if I'm to compare the two. It's not really, you know, for me, and I am subjective, my preferred building from his oeuvre, but, you know, he tried something here too. You know, look at that turmoil on the ceiling, you know, where there is geometry. I mean, there is some sort of order, organic as it is. And, but, you know, considering also this is a commercial building, this is a mall. It's a mall, but look at these fluidities, and you know, it matters. You know, it invites people in and it stimulates them, yes, to spend more, because that's the reason for a mall to be, to sell things. And but I think it matters, this particularly because, of course, left and right there are just stores, but above you have this ceiling which is stimulating because it promotes a certain degree of freedom and visual lyricism. So this is a building built in Liège in France. After we saw the tower built in Tel Aviv in Israel, and we'll see some other things by him. You have to acknowledge it's nice to be an architect, but it's even nicer when you are a creative architect and you have a creative activity. Yes, that's when the pleasure steps in. And paradoxically, no, I shouldn't mention this. I wanted to say that, you know, it's kind of strange that maybe it's not strange. You know, those who take risks actually often achieve also even material success, you know, because it's a truth. You know, most people who spend some money to build a building do want to have something special. you know, even if they don't say it, even if they say, I have a very limited budget, but even within a limited budget, you can be creative and bring some joy in, some playfulness. I'm absolutely sure most normal beneficiaries would appreciate. Because who wouldn't want to spend some money for something which is interesting, which is stimulating? You know, who would want to just pay money on some banality, something that is, morose and stern and predictable? No, I think most people love new things, love things that are stimulating. It's normal. It's part of life. It's part of who we are. So this idea that, you know, the beneficiary is some kind of a monster who only wants to cut off your creativity, I don't think is true. And from my own experience, I didn't build too much, but I built a little. It's not like this. No, even in communist Romania, and it was then when I built, even the communists, if you offer them something heartfelt and, justified in certain aesthetical decisions, people enjoy. It's normal. You enjoy something that is special. Now, who would want, you know, something which is, without life and uninteresting? No, this idea that the beneficiary is, an anti-architecture animal, I don't subscribe to it. Because the beneficiary, in fact, actually, the beneficiary is not just the person who pays for the work, but also, in fact, there are several beneficiaries. Is the one who pays for the work, is the architect because he has the benefit of creating a project that is built, is the passerby, the public on the street or wherever it is, because benefits from seeing a building that hopefully is a good building. The builder also is a beneficiary if the builder also is challenged creatively. The engineer is a beneficiary if he or she has the chance to be also creative. The truth is, a building is a collective work. The beneficiaries are all of them, all who contribute not just to the making of the building, but also to the usage of the building, and those who visit it, or those who pass by, or those who look at a book. They all benefit from a building that doesn't leave them indifferent. So again, I'm against the definition of the beneficiary considered as being only the one who pays the money. No, he is maybe yes, he is the one who pays for the building, but the beneficiaries are many, and I mentioned them. I think we have to break away from this narrow and inaccurate definition of the beneficiary. No, in architecture, there are many beneficiaries, some seen, some unseen, but they are. You benefit, you know, like I benefit from looking. I have nothing to do with the building in Tel Aviv. I never went to Tel Aviv. I never met Ron Arad. I was not a relative or a friend of the people who pay the money for the building, but I benefit from contemplating the building even on the web. And maybe most surely more if I visited Tel Aviv, and even more if I used it, because beneficiaries are also those who use a building, even if they don't pay for it. In fact, even better, no? I mean, you know, wouldn't you like to benefit from a building without actually paying a cent? Sure you would. It's literally about joy. Life is difficult for all of us. Now there is a terrible war. There are tragedies. Death could knock us down at any time. Why torture ourselves with all kinds of prescriptions and restrictions and dogmas and all the rest? Why not try to enjoy our work? As Doshi, one of the last Pritzker Prize winners, said, the first Indian architect who won the Pritzker, and he never studied in a school of architecture. He said, love what you do and do what you love. Of course, it sounds right. It sounds good. It's not so easy to do. It's not so easy to do because society, professors, parents, institutions, strangely, somehow they form a coalition against joy, a coalition against freedom, a coalition against you loving what you do. But if you love what you do and you do what you love, then you actually you don't work. It's not work, it's pleasure. And you can work, my God, 18 hours a day, if not more, without even eating. Why? Because you have joy and you love what you do. You even forget to eat. It happened to me sometimes, and it's beautiful. But when you do something against your heart, when you do something against your feelings, your passion, then you feel like going to the refrigerator all the time because you're unhappy. It's known. People who have unhappiness in their lives at night, they go to the refrigerator and try to compensate for the misery, the psychic misery, with something from the refrigerator. Why do you think people dance wildly in the weekends? In my opinion, if I am to think about architects, I think those who are very creative don't need to get wild in the weekends, don't need to run away when the school ends, or to run away when the so-called vacation time comes. I know most people look at the watch anxiously from Monday to Friday. They can't wait for the weekend to come. The sooner, the better. Why? Because they hate what they do. That's why. Because if you love what you do, you are not going to look at the watch that will tell you, well, in a certain time, your joy will end because what you work on will end. No, you would want it to last for as long as possible. So, in my opinion, great creators didn't even need vacation time. Why would you? The vacation was in the very creative work that you were doing. That's where the vacation was, and the best, because you also created something, gave birth to something, uniting work with pleasure, work with playing. That's the best. If you unite work with pleasure or with playing, you don't need a weekend. No, because you have the weekend Monday and Wednesday and Tuesday and Thursday, in the joy of producing interesting things, creating things. I don't think Brâncuș, when he was doing sculpture, because after 60, he kind of stopped doing sculpture, but any artist, I don't think an artist has a weekend. No. Why would he? I mean, when you love painting or whatever you do, in fact, there are people who paint in the weekend. They have another job from Monday to Friday, and in the weekend, instead of going to exotic islands or, I don't know, going to the bar and get drunk, they love to paint, they love to write, they love to play the violin, they love. What I'm trying to say, you don't need a vacation time if you have a creative life from so-called Monday through Friday. In fact, you'll be full of creativity 24/7. And I know from my own experience. I give presentations on Saturdays and Sundays. I never had a weekend. I don't have a vacation. I don't need it because I love what I do. I really do. Nobody asked me to make these presentations. I'm not getting paid for them. I do them because I love to do this. I learn new things. I like to discover things. I love creativity. So why would I need a weekend? Why would I need a vacation time? But if you have a boring job, then of course you look at the watch all the time. There are 12 more hours until the weekend, until 5 p.m. on Friday or whatever. You can't wait for the torture to end. But when you do exciting things, because it's really about excitement. When you have excitement in your life, of course you don't want it to end. Why would you? I mean, it's like being in love, right? When you are truly in love, you don't look at the watch, would you? In fact, you don't care about the watch. You throw the watch to the gutter. You don't need it. You fly. You fly to meet your loved one, and you spend with the loved one as much time as possible. I read that Fernando Pessoa, the great Portuguese poet, about whom I learned via Alvaro Siza. I attended a conference by Alvaro Siza at Columbia University in New York. And he said that he was very influenced by his countryman, Fernando Pessoa, a truly great poet. But I read that Fernando Pessoa was in love with a girl in the office where he worked. You know, he was a poet. He had to earn his living, so he worked in an office. So he would accompany her going home from the office to, to home, her home. But he would choose the longest road. It's beautiful, it's moving. Of course, he chose the longest road because he wanted to spend as much time as possible with a girl he loved. That's it. It's the same if you work on a project that you love, you would spend as much time as possible there. It doesn't matter, it's Saturday or Sunday, you'll continue to work because it's exciting, because you love what you do, that's why. And when you love what you do, it would be perverse and stupid to, close shop, to say, I have to go. This is too pleasurable, this is too nice. No, there is no such thing. I am totally a promoter of creativity. Without creativity, don't do architecture. Become something else. Although I think creativity can manifest itself at all levels, in all professions. You can be creative in anything if you are full of life and full of joy for living, and you can be very, very creative. Truly, even in bureaucracy, I would say. And I hate bureaucracy. Look at this huge building built by this dreamer and this, black sheep. Why Niagara? Because that's what great creators are. They are nuisances, but they are also, immensely necessary to life. Without them, I mean, this is a mall, for God's sake, it's a prosaic building, but he tried to do something even with the mall, Yes, the shops were the shops, but look at the ceiling, at the roof. The roof is creative. It's lyrical. It's fluid. It's snake-like. It's a creation. Is that his hand? I don't know. Now, Design Museum in Holon, in Israel. So, text description by Ron Arad architects. They were invited by the municipality of Holon to design and develop the first national design museum in Israel. The Design Museum Holon is intended as the national platform for the presentation of design, the creation of a significant exhibition collection, the reflection of Israeli design in the context of world design, and the endorsement of the importance of design in a young, emerging state. Here it is. Can you do it with the T-square and the rectangle? I doubt it. I doubt it. I mean, you can do the buildings around it with the T-square and the rectangle, yes, but not this one. I don't know. It is very possible he doesn't know how to work with softwares, but he doesn't need to. He employs people who know how to do it. He does a sketch, but he appreciates, just like Frank Gehry and Zaha Hadid. They didn't work themselves with the computers, but they understood the computer and the software belong to our time, to our present. Thus, they cannot be avoided unless you want to do an architecture that does not belong to our time, then yes. Even this building, I wouldn't say it's the least interesting building in the world. It's not. Yes, it has parts that are, typical museum spaces where the artworks or the designs are those that, the items that people look at. But even as a, as a museum, rather conventional room, I think is well done. Towards the outside, what do we see? We see the invitation of creativity towards everybody, to open up, to bring joy. Now, some people might say, wait a minute, I don't see too much joy here. Well, do you see more joy here in the whitish building behind an apartment building? Try something, other people who try something else. But I don't think it's the worst building in the world. It's not. And, again, he asserted himself as a creative person. And there are interesting spaces. I mean, the very fact that he was invited to build this building says something, doesn't it? Color, also color. Color is life, no? I mean, how much whiteness is there in nature? Not much. Well, the wings of the butterfly are very colorful, are they not? The tail of the peacock is also very colorful. The flowers that show up, in the trees in the spring are also colorful. Why? Well, color is a celebration of life and of light. The spiral as well. We see here spiraling colorful elements. Okay, they are capricious. Okay, they are not structural, although they are self-sustaining. You would say, they are useless. The functionalist would say, what is their function? Their function is to warm up our souls, sir. That's not a function? I think it is a function. This idea that, beauty has nothing to do with function, that form doesn't have anything to do with function, that emotions are not somehow not part of life, wonderment is not necessary. What are people talking about? You mean functions are just eating and sleeping and opening the refrigerator and going to the toilet and taking care of our bank accounts? These are the only functions of life? I don't think so. This is the kind of projects you should do in school, every project. Okay, if you want to be eccentric and do one with a T-square and a rectangle, okay, that is acceptable too. To have the freedom of choice. You can do it this way, or you can yourself create Le Poème de l'angle droit, the poem of the right angle. It's up to you. Some people are more comfortable with rectangles and squares and cubes. Others perhaps would love to work with fluidities and curves. Allow them to be themselves. Don't restrict them. I mean, he uses rectangularity too, because these two buildings, the actual rooms, are rectangular, two rectangular boxes. But then he surrounds them with this, vortex of curves, and that's the mortar between the two prisms, brings them together, and brings them together actually through emotions, because these curves do nothing else but belong and emerge from the world of emotions. That's what they represent. That's what they are. That's what they symbolize. And that's what art does. And the building does not become architecture if it doesn't become art, if it doesn't go through being an art. That's the risk. You make a building that does not become architecture, and it does not become architecture when it is not creative enough, playful enough, joyous enough. These crazy curves represent exactly that, the world of emotions, of of the unconscious even, it's real about aspiration. How else could we have art? Just with rectangular boxes? There were some good buildings that were just with rectangularity too, of course, but it depends on the look at the, this is the vignette of the building. It's it's his work, it's his personality, like this, with a part which can conform, which can assume conformity and even restrictions, rules and regulations, but also loves freedom. The stern dogmatic functionalist would say this thing is total nonsense, losing the beneficiaries' money. It's not so. I am very sorry. It's not so. This has a function too. It's a function that is not to be described or present in the pages of Ernest Neufert, but it's a function of life. Now, I end this still, work in progress, because he keeps building. So I made this PowerPoint presentation like 2 years ago. In the meantime, I'm sure he built something else. So my presentation is not quite up to date, but I offered, I think, a little bit of a portrait of this interesting man, Ron Arad, and now I'll show some industrial design and some artworks. They are, expensive, exotic, flamboyant. That's his personality too. Look at this chair, I think it's good. Yes, it's whimsical. Yes, it probably costs a fortune, but he did it. It was built. Is it comfortable? I have seen more uncomfortable chairs and more morose. This is an interesting idea, to make a chair out of a rug, so-called rug. Now, I don't know what this is. Another chair which also becomes the man is very inventive, and he is an accomplished industrial designer. It's again about mobility, about dynamic qualities, transformations, change. Here is another chair, and architects often design chairs. Some of the best architects design chairs. Kahn didn't, but others did. Aalto did, Wright did, Le Corbusier did, Mies did. Now this is Ron Arad, who is more of an industrial designer than architect, but you saw buildings built by Ron Arad, another interesting chair by him. And it is interesting, whatever one might say. But these are one-of-a-kind pieces, of course. These are not social works. They are not, to be mass-produced. Although this one could have been or could be. This one is interesting too. I don't know how comfortable, but many chairs are not comfortable, and that's why Frank Lloyd Wright complained in his later years that he had a certain pain at a certain part of his body because he sat for too long on his own chairs. You understand? This one also is, it's whimsical. It has maybe it's even a vehicle chair here, and he created a one of a kind art piece, incorporating and maybe adding something, or maybe not. Yeah, I imagine this was also part. Yes, I think this is a chair, that once belonged to a vehicle, or was created similar to a vehicle, an automobile chair. Another kind of a chair, but it's also a sculpture. This is, I don't know what it is, a sofa. I don't know. It's almost a model of the industrial design museum we just saw. This one we already saw, but seen from the other side, or a variation of it. I suggest this often to students. If you are bored, or I don't know, you are melancholy, or I don't know, you go through a crisis, take a pencil and a piece of paper, or do it digitally. Try to design a chair. It's very rewarding. It's therapeutic, actually. You might not need to go to a therapist if you design a chair, or 5 chairs, or 10 chairs. I did this myself, and one day I could show you. I designed some ceremonial chairs, as I call them. It is really very, very, very therapeutic and very rewarding. And actually, as Miss van der Rohe said, at least sometimes it's more difficult to create a chair than a skyscraper. And the chair says something about your personality, maybe more than a skyscraper. Here is his office. Not bad. Not bad. Now, I don't know how he is as the boss of an office, but you see the young people, and it's colorful. And, this is in London. Look at this, reminiscent of his architecture and his designs. There is a level of playfulness here, isn't it? Now, an office is an office. Let's not be, too idealistic or naive about it. It's about producing and production, and of course, this involves money, and So this is his office, Ron Arad's office in London. Original as the man himself and his works as well. Do you see anyone here working with T-squares and rectangles? Of course not. And this is not the most technologized office. In fact, this picture I took, I don't know, 3 years ago from the web, and it's not so recent. But you still see this is the procedure these days. You work digitally because you can't even collaborate with your colleagues if you work with the aforementioned T-square and the rectangle. And he designed even this whimsical ping pong table. You see, it's a little bit curved, and I guess he enjoys playing. Is this his car? I see, the color of the building also, found room on the car itself. And here is the man, the boss, playing ping pong, I guess, with one of his colleagues or employees. And here he says, Ron Arad Studio. Whatever, maybe it's written kind of the same on the other side. I don't know. But anyway, this is Ron Arad, and let's wish him happy birthday. Happy 71st birthday on the 24th of April, 2022. And this is the last image of this presentation. He created this, I don't know how to call it. Is it a design, industrial design? Is it an artwork? A bicycle which has this, artistic wheel in the back. very much artistic. I don't know how the bike works, but I imagine the man loves biking, and I like people who bike. So you know, we need more bikes in the world and less cars. Happy birthday, Ron Arad. Thank you.